there's a country in the Balkans that most people can't find on a map. Home to just over 620,000 people, Montenegro is one of Europe's smallest nations, but it carries a story much bigger than its size suggests. For centuries, its coast was a haven for pirates and a prize that empires fought over. Byzantines, Venetians, Ottomans, they all wanted this small piece of land between the mountains and the sea. Yet despite all that history, Montenegro is actually one of the world's newest countries, only gaining independence in 2006. Today, more than 2 million people visit each year, drawn by the same wild landscapes that made empires go to war for this place. They come looking for something most of Europe has lost. Fortresses and walled towns that still cling to cliffs above the Adriatic. Rivers that carve canyons so deep, they rival the Grand Canyon. And glacial lakes, hidden in mountains that rise straight from the sea. The locals have a saying: when God finished creating the world, he had a bag of leftover beauty, and he scattered it all across Montenegro. It's a place that feels almost too dramatic to be real, where every turn reveals something that stops you in your tracks. These are the wonders of Montenegro. Barely 300 meters wide, Perast holds more history than most cities 10 times its size. It was once a naval outpost, but it now sits quietly on the edge of the Bay of Kotor. It faces the open Adriatic, framed by the sharp rise of the Adriatic Alps. St. Nicholas Church rises in the center of town, with a bell tower that once served as a watchpost for Venetian ships. Built in the early 1600s, it remains one of the tallest structures in the bay. The view from the top stretches across the rooftops and out toward the Twin Islands. Our Lady of the Rocks is the more famous of the two. According to legend, local sailors discovered an icon of the Virgin Mary on a sea rock in 1452. Each time they returned from a successful voyage, they dropped stones in the water until a whole island was built. The church that now sits there is covered in silver plates, each one engraved by a sailor who survived the sea. The second island, St. George, is closed to visitors. It holds a 12th century monastery, surrounded by tall cypress trees and a small cemetery. Unlike the man-made island next to it, St. George is natural and older. From the shore, the two islands look almost like mirror images, one built by faith, the other left untouched. linked to the shore of the Budva Riviera by a narrow causeway. Sveti Stefan began in the 15th century as a fortified fishing village, where families lived within high walls for protection. It was built by the Petrovac tribe to defend against Ottoman and pirate attacks. In the 20th century, the island emptied and was transformed into an exclusive resort. On either side of the causeway, twin beaches curve along the coast, one public and one reserved for guests. Its red rooftops and stone facades are now one of Montenegro's most iconic views. The largest lake in the Balkans and a protected national park, Skadar Lake straddles the border of Montenegro and Albania. Its waters shift with the seasons, swelling wide in spring, then shrinking back in summer to reveal wetlands and hidden coves. Mountains close in around the shore, especially at the green canyon of Rijeka Crnojevića, where steep forested slopes fold into the water. From above, the Crnojevića River bends into the lake in a near-perfect horseshoe, its surface dotted with wooden fishing boats. The curve is best seen from Pavlova Strana, a viewpoint where the whole river looks like it's flowing through a green-painted canyon. On the northern shore, the Kom Monastery hides among cypress and chestnut trees. Built in the 15th century, it once relied on the lake's isolation for protection. Its stone walls, softened by age and greenery, still give it the feel of a refuge. The main highway between Podgorica and the coast skims across part of the lake. Yet even here, the water feels larger than the road. Scattered along its shores are stone fortresses. The most striking is Lisendro Fortress, built on a small island near the town of Vranjina. For centuries, it guarded the narrow straits where the Moracha River flows into Skadar. The Ottomans once called it the key to the lake. Legend says, Skadar Lake was formed in one night, when a joyous bride forgot to turn off a fountain tap, causing the waters to rise and a lake to be born. It has lived through the rule of more than 6 empires. Kotor sits where the mountains fall straight into the sea, at the end of a narrow inlet on the bay. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, protected as one of the best preserved medieval towns in the Adriatic. Inside the old town, the streets are narrow and uneven. Small squares open suddenly between high stone walls, and balconies lean overhead. Cats wander freely here, they became so common that Kotor earned the name City of Cats. The town is ringed by defensive walls that climb 4.5 kilometers up the steep hillside. Parts of the stonework are over 1,000 years old. They were designed to repel invaders approaching from the sea or descending through the mountain passes. Following the walls to their highest point leads to Fortress St. John. It was once the main stronghold above the harbor, a final defense if the lower town was breached. The climb to the top takes 1,350 stone steps, each one shaped smooth by centuries. Halfway up the hill stands the Church of Our Lady of Remedy. Built in 1518 during a plague breakout, locals believed it offered protection. Its whitewashed walls and simple bell tower stand out against the green slopes. Its position makes it one of the most photographed spots in Montenegro. The Kotor Serpentine Road cuts into the mountainside in a series of sharp switchbacks. It was built during the Austro-Hungarian period to connect Kotor with Neagushi and Cetinje. It offers the best panoramic view of the city. Rooftops, the Bay of Kotor, and the surrounding peaks, all in a single frame. Built into a vertical cliff 900 meters above the Zeta Valley, Ostrog Monastery looks impossible at first glance. Its white walls are carved straight into the rock, with narrow terraces clinging to the edge of the mountain. The road to reach it winds up the side of Ostroška Grada, a jagged mountain ridge that looks almost vertical from a distance. It was founded by Saint Basil of Ostrog, a Montenegrin bishop who chose this isolated spot to escape Ottoman persecution. After his death, his remains were buried in the rock, and stories of healing and protection began to spread. It quickly became one of the most important pilgrimage sites in the Balkans. People come from across the region, some walking for days, to pray, to reflect, or just to be near it. Sometimes a place becomes so valuable that everyone wants to own it. Stari Bar was one of those places. Sitting at the foot of Mount Rumia, it controlled the route between the Adriatic coast and the mountain passes inland. Its broken walls spread across the hillside like a stone puzzle, missing half its pieces. The Byzantines built the first fortress walls, massive stone blocks that still tower above you in places. Serb rulers expanded them higher, their medieval stonework rougher, but just as strong. But the Ottomans? They built a whole city here. Graceful arches now stand roofless against the sky, and public bath chambers lie open to the elements. Each empire left something behind, creating layers of history you can read in the stone. Stand up here, and you understand why everyone fought for this spot. The view stretches across the entire coastline and back into the mountains. You could see enemies coming from miles away. The cycle finally ended in 1979, but not from conquest. An earthquake collapsed the aqueduct. Without water, people left. Today, Stari Bar sits empty. Its streets are silent, its walls broken, but they still tell the story of every empire that called this place home. Sometimes the most powerful enemy isn't another army, it's time itself. Its name comes from the Celtic word Durmitor, meaning sleeping place of the gods. Durmitor National Park stretches across the northern mountains of Montenegro, with over 390 square kilometers of rugged terrain. It's one of the wildest and most extreme regions in the Balkans. At its center is a mountain massif with over 40 peaks, spanning 30 kilometers east to west and 20 kilometers north to south. Bobotov Kuk is the highest peak at 2,523 meters. A narrow mountain road winds through Sedlo Pass, cutting between high cliffs and open pasture land. But it only goes so far. From the end of the road, the rest of the climb is on foot. The final ridge narrows to a line of stone with drops on both sides. At the top, the view cuts across the entire Durmitor range and out toward the borders of Bosnia and Serbia. Scattered across the highlands are the Gorski Oči, the mountain eyes, a network of 18 glacial lakes. Crno Jezero, Black Lake, mirrors the mountains with near-perfect clarity. The water shifts from deep green to black, especially where the trees lean out over the surface. Some locals say it formed after a monastery sank into the ground, punishment for turning away a stranger. The lake is surrounded by a dense belt of evergreen conifers that climbs the slopes and presses tight against the water's edge. Forming the deepest canyon in Europe, the Tara River cuts through the park's far side. In some places, the water is so blue, it looks lit from below. The river carved this gorge over millions of years, leaving behind cliffs that rise more than 1,300 meters above the water. At one of its narrowest points, The Jurjevica Tara Bridge crosses overhead. Built just before World War II, it became both a passage and a target. Though part of it was destroyed, it was rebuilt stone by stone after the war. Now, it's one of the most photographed bridges in the Balkans. Winters here are long and brutal. Snow can bury the highlands for over half the year, covering entire valleys. One of the most popular ski areas is Savin Kuk, located near the town of Žabljak. When the rest of the park disappears under snow, this slope stays active. Nature leads here, and everything else just follows where it can. Legend says, Budva was founded by Cadmus, a Phoenician prince banished from Thebes, and his wife Harmonia. More than 2,500 years ago, they landed on the Adriatic coast, and the settlement that grew here became one of the oldest in the region. Perched on a small peninsula, Budva's old town is wrapped in Venetian seawalls, built to fend off pirates and coastal storms. On rough days, waves slam directly against the stone. After the 1979 earthquake left much of it in ruins, locals rebuilt it, brick by brick, preserving its medieval alleys and squares. Across the bay, Sveti Nikola feels wilder. Nicknamed Hawaii for its clear turquoise waters, it's covered in pine forest and edged with rocky cliffs and sandy coves. Boats ferry day trippers from Budva to swim, to wander, and to take in wide-open views back toward the coast. Its name means Duke's New Castle, a title born from its beginnings as a small coastal stronghold, and it grew into one of Montenegro's most striking gateways. Herceg Novi guards the entrance to the Bay of Kotor, rising from the waterfront into the green slopes of Mount Orjen. At the center of this ascent is Bella Vista Square, a sunlit, stone-paved plaza where the Church of St. Michael the Archangel stands over the rooftops. The name Bella Vista, meaning beautiful view, is no exaggeration. From here, the bay is framed by rows of red tiles and the shimmer of open water. Beyond the old town, the Savina Monastery rests among olive groves above the sea. Here, the Church of the Assumption holds centuries-old icons and manuscripts. With a history stretching back nearly 1,000 years, it remains one of Montenegro's most important Orthodox landmarks. Herceg Novi's story is also told through its fortifications, shaped by the empires that once fought for control. closest to the shore. Forte Mare, the sea fortress, appears almost anchored to the rocks themselves. Built for naval defense, its terraces seem to float above the water, offering an unbroken view of the bay. Higher up, Conli Kula, the Bloody Tower, has a more vertical, commanding form. Once a prison, its barred windows still open to sheer drops. The wide courtyard has been turned into a performance stage, but the thick walls and silent cells hint at a harsher past. Watching over them all from the hilltop, the fortress Spagnola stretches across the ridge like a walled village. Built to withstand long sieges, its gates, vaulted chambers, and watchtowers still remain largely intact. Visitors can still walk along sections of the thick stone walls, tracing the same paths once patrolled by soldiers. From these heights, the view reaches far beyond the town, taking in both the bay's blue curve and the mountains behind it. Fed by the Siat Spring, the Piva River begins high in the limestone plateau of northern Montenegro. From its source, it cuts one of the most dramatic canyons in the Balkans. The river's color is striking. It runs an opaque turquoise, turned that way by minerals carried down from the mountains. The Mratinia Bridge spans the canyon more than 150 meters above the water. From here, you can see the steep cliffs closing in, a reminder of the valley that once ran through this area. That valley no longer exists. In the late 1960s, construction began on the Mratinia Dam. When it was completed, the dam blocked the Piva River and flooded the canyon. What emerged was Lake Piva, a 45-kilometer-long artificial reservoir. Its surface sits at over 675 meters above sea level, pressed in by sheer rock faces. Even though it's man-made, it keeps the same turquoise color as the river that feeds it. Locals say its depth gives it an almost otherworldly stillness. Just east of Budva, the town of Bečići spreads along one of the longest sandy beaches on the Adriatic. For centuries, it was a small fishing settlement, but in the 20th century, it grew into a seaside resort. Where Budva is dense, Bečići feels wide open, its shore stretching broad and flat for nearly 2 kilometers. In 1935, it won the Grand Prix in Paris for the most beautiful beach in Europe, a title still remembered today. The waterfront is lined with hotels and promenades, yet the beach itself feels natural. Shallow water makes the bay calm and clear, part of why it became popular among many travelers. A pedestrian path connects Bečići directly to Budva, linking the quiet sands to the older town's busy streets. Together, they form the center of the Budva Riviera, two places side by side, but each with a very different character. Also called the Black Mountain, Lovćen is the peak that gave Montenegro, Crna Gora, its name. The national park spans about 62 square kilometers, from high wind-scoured ridges to deep forests and hidden karst valleys. It has long been a symbol of the country's independence and identity. At the summit of Jeserski Vrh, 1,657 meters above sea level, lies the Njegoš Mausoleum. It's the highest mausoleum in the world, perched right on the exposed peak. It was built for Petar II Petrovic Njegoš, the poet-prince who shaped Montenegro's 19th century soul. On the viewing platform, you can see almost 70% of Montenegro, as well as Albania, Croatia, and Italy's Gargano Peninsula. The Kotor Serpentine Road, with its 25 hairpin bends, snakes up Lovćen slopes before dropping into the village of Njeguši. Known for its prosciutto and cheese, the village's curing process blends mountain and sea air, giving the meat a flavor unique to this place. From here, the slopes of Lovćen rise again, leading back into the high ridges and sweeping vistas that define the park. At first glance, Petrovac seems like a simple seaside town, but beneath its quiet surface is a history that stretches back centuries. The town sits on the coast between Budva and Bar, where the mountains fall into a small crescent of red sand beach. Stone houses with orange tiled roofs line the waterfront, giving it the feel of an old fishing village preserved in time. Overlooking the bay is the Castello, a Venetian fortress from the 16th century. Its stone walls once guarded against pirates who prowled the Adriatic, protecting both the town and its small harbor. From its ramparts, you can see the entire curve of the bay and the mountains. Just off the coast stands two small islands, Katić and Sveta Nedelja. Katić rises under a cloak of pine, its rocky slopes like a floating forest in the bay. The small church of Sveta Nedelja stands on a lone rock next to it. Built by sailors who survived a shipwreck, it became a place to give thanks and pray for safe passage. The white stone chapel, crowned with a single bell tower, became a memorial for all those lost to storms. Ulcinj is one of Montenegro's oldest towns, its foundation set more than 2,000 years ago. Carved into the Adriatic coast, it became a crossroads for traders and sailors, but also a haven for pirates who once controlled its waters. Each era left behind pieces of itself, layered into the streets and the lives of the people who still call it home. South of town, Cape Radislav pushes into the sea like a wedge of stone. The cliffs rise sharp above the water, their edges lined with pine and olive trees that cling to the rock. From above, the shoreline looks fractured, as if the earth had split and hardened into jagged fingers of rock. Inside the old town, the fortress of Ulcinj commands the ridge. Its walls, thick with centuries of rebuilding, carry the mark of the many powers that fought to hold this coast. The fortress looms over the skyline, a reminder of Ulcinj's days as a pirate stronghold and Ottoman port. Built at the meeting point of 5 rivers, Podgorica has been destroyed and rebuilt more than once. As the capital of Montenegro, it balances the weight of history with the pull of the present. Much of its old architecture was lost in World War II, but modern high-rises now sit alongside Ottoman remnants and Soviet-era blocks. Rising above the skyline, Resurrection Cathedral took more than 2 decades to complete. Over 17,000 square feet of intricate frescoes, golden icons, and carved stonework draw from centuries of Serbian Orthodox tradition. It now stands as the largest church in the country. Cutting through the city's center, Moracha River carves a canyon that feels surprisingly wild for a capital. Its steep banks drop into deep turquoise water. From up close, the river feels like it belongs in a mountain gorge, not the middle of a government district. Across it, Millennium Bridge stretches in a clean white arch that nearly blends into the skyline. Opened in 2005, it became a symbol of Montenegro's shift toward modernity after years of conflict and transition. South of the city, the Cijevna River winds through a rocky gorge. Some stretches move gently over shallow ledges. Others squeeze through narrow channels. Cijevna flows on through the gorge, never losing the clarity that makes it one of the region's most scenic rivers. Officially called Lastavica, Mamula is a small round island guarding the entrance to the Bay of Kotor. Nearly its entire surface is taken up by a 19th century Austro-Hungarian fort. Built in 1853 to work with the forts at Arza and Prevlaka, it formed a crossfire defense that made entering the bay nearly impossible. Hundreds of locals were held here in overcrowded, brutal conditions, and the stories of that time remain deeply rooted in local memory. After the war, Mamula was abandoned. Redevelopment has transformed the site into a luxury resort, sparking criticism from locals and historians who fear it risks erasing the memory of those who suffered here. The Bay of Kotor ties Montenegro's coast together like nothing else. Every town, every monastery, every fortress faces its waters. Massive cruise ships glide into the bay, making the stone harbors and rooftops of towns like Kotor and Perast look tiny. A single ship can tower above the medieval walls. It's a striking contrast. Centuries-old ports welcoming ships the size of floating cities. But the same shape that made it a safe harbor also made it dangerous. Beneath the calm, blue surface lies a darker story. For centuries, the bay has claimed its share of wrecks, merchant ships broken by storms, war galleys sunk in naval battles, even submarines lost during World War II. Their remains still lie scattered on the seabed, hidden from view but not from memory. The Bay of Kotor keeps its secrets beneath that perfect blue surface. It was the last southern line of defense for the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but Kosmač never fired a single shot. Built in the mid-1800s, the fortress was designed to guard the empire's border with Montenegro. From its position on a ridge above the Budva Riviera, it had direct sightlines across the hills, down to the Adriatic coast, and toward the inland mountain passes. The structure is made of rough gray limestone, shaped into a rectangular plan with 2 levels. Each corner is reinforced by a circular tower, part lookout, part stronghold. Narrow windows, barely wider than a rifle barrel, cut through the outer walls, offering full coverage without exposing the men inside. The fortress is now in ruins. The roof has collapsed, and vegetation pushes through the cracks. There are no signs, no fences, just scattered stone, and the silence of an outpost that never saw battle. Known as the gateway to Skadar Lake, Virpazar grew as a trading post where villagers once gathered to sell wine, olives, and fish. The village's very name means the market by the whirlpool, a reminder of the rivers that meet here before spilling into the lake. Above it all rises Bečići's fortress, first built in the 15th century and later reinforced by the Ottomans. Its strategic position on a low hill just beyond the rooftops marked Virpazar as a critical frontier post. Square towers and thick ramparts stand among chestnut groves, giving the impression of a citadel half hidden in the trees. From Bečići's walls, the view sweeps over the village, the wetlands, and the wide expanse of Skadar. There's a place on a hill at the edge of Vrachinovici, with no path leading to it, just open ground and the faint outline of a wall in the distance. That wall belongs to Crkva na Valu, the church on the rock. The chapel is small and weathered, with barely enough space for a dozen people. It was built in the 1600s by villagers fleeing an Ottoman raid. From the chapel, you can see Lake Krupats stretching out behind the hills. For the families who returned, this chapel wasn't just a place to pray. It was a promise that they were still here. Just outside Cetinje, Lipa cave stretches for more than 2 kilometers underground. Formed in limestone over millions of years, the cave is one of the largest karst systems in Montenegro, shaped entirely by water, pressure, and time. The ceilings rise into dark domes, and the walls are carved with folds and sharp mineral seams. Light catches the stone in strange ways, and sometimes the path narrows so tightly, it feels like the cave is closing in. For centuries, locals used it as a shelter and a hiding place. Today, only a small section is open to the public. Unlike the neighboring towns of Kotor and Perast, Tivat developed much later, around 1889, making it the youngest town on the bay. Framed by the Vermats Mountains and Adriatic Sea, it sits on the Bay of Kotor's sunniest shoreline and has grown into Montenegro's modern yachting hub. Porto Montenegro stands at the center of that transformation. Built on the site of a former naval shipyard, the luxury marina is lined with sleek yachts and waterfront cafes. Just offshore lies the small island of Gospa od Milosti, Our Lady of Mercy. It's home to a 15th century Franciscan monastery. The complex has long been a site of pilgrimage, its chapel filled with maritime gifts from sailors who once prayed here. Even as Tivat grows into one of the Adriatic's most polished destinations, its character lies in balance. Still officially recognized as Montenegro's old royal capital, Cetinje remains the country's cultural and historical heart. Around 14,000 residents live here, often referring to it as the soul of Montenegro. For more than 300 years, Cetinje Monastery has been the seat of Montenegro's Orthodox Church. The current building dates to 1701, rebuilt after earlier structures were destroyed during Ottoman attacks. Framed by dark cypress trees, its gray walls and modest bell tower give it a fortified, almost austere presence. The monastery houses rare and sacred relics, including the right hand of St. John the Baptist, a particle of the true cross, and the relics of St. Peter of Cetinje, Montenegro's patron saint.